What is going on, FA Nation? Happy Tuesday, and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Live. I am James Grande. Over on the other side of the screen, we have Sean Mitchell. Big shout out to John and Pemba for producing today's live stream. Sean, we have a ton of interesting things going on here in the NBA. And by interesting, I mean horrible, because COVID has run rampant through the league. There's obviously a lot of question marks right now, especially on tonight's slate where we have them a Miami Heat team in peril. We have a Sixers team getting a couple guys back, but none of their COVID guys back. So FanDuel just said, screw it. We're just going to run with a 5-game slate tonight. We don't need to deal with this COVID nonsense. So we have a 5-game slate over on FanDuel, and then we have a 6-game slate on DraftKings. Sean, how do you feel about the split? How do you feel about kind of the state of the NBA right now?
I don't know, man. I mean, they're already postponing games a day ahead of time, 2 days ahead of time. I mean, I know I saw yesterday that, the Board of Governors was supposed to be meeting here really soon. I mean, they just today announced that, players were going to be on basically like home arrest for 2 weeks. I mean, like that's really going to work. I'm kind of worried, to be honest. I kind of think that there could be a pause in the season. I mean, I know they're talking, saying that, there's not going to be a pause. They're not going to stop the season. But if these guys, if these teams can't field 8 players, we've already seen it once or twice. I mean, it's going to continue to happen more and more often. That, they're postponing games left and right now. It's really not in a good state. Not at all.
Yeah, and Adam Silver is a smart guy. So if it gets any worse, he's not going to risk the health of everyone, and the season's definitely going to get paused. I think it's interesting to note, like, they're trying to jam 72 games into a very small window. Like the Pacers, for example, play 5 games this week, including Monday, including tonight. So
Right.
if that's any indication of the travel and the potential COVID risk that teams are being put at, it's not gonna get any better unless they do implement these new COVID protocols. And but I digress. We do have 6 games to talk about because we are going to talk about the Heat Sixers game tonight. We did just get news. The Heat have 8 active players tonight. Myers Leonard will not suit up, so the active Heat are Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Andre Iguodala, Kelly Olynyk, Precious Achua, Gabe Vincent, Chris Silva, and Max Struss. So we do have 8 Heat available. We did just get word Joel Embiid is going to play. Ben Simmons is going to play. Tony Bradley also listed as active for Philly. Sean, we're just kind of waiting on a couple pieces of news. LeBron Davis, I don't even know if we're waiting on them. Like, they're going to play. They play. They're questionable every night. They play every night. I think if we were to worry about one of the two, it'd be Anthony Davis. LeBron's just suiting up every night. We are waiting on Andre Drummond news. That was something that hit the wire later in the afternoon. Cleveland is on a back-to-back, so interesting to see if Drummond does suit up tonight. The Pacers said there is question marks behind Victor Oladipo tonight on the second leg of a back-to-back. Didn't play a back-to-back earlier in the year. Have to assume, if we are making assumptions, he won't play again here tonight. And then John Wall, Eric Gordon. The update we got, Sean, questionable. Yes, thank you very much for your time. So glad. Yeah, just a waste of a read. We already knew they were questionable. So that's really the news. We're waiting on a couple totals. You mentioned it before we hopped on air. Denver Brooklyn popped 230.5, and it's only a 1-point spread. So that should be a really fun game to watch. No Kyrie Irving, obviously, in that game. That whole drama there. And then Indiana Golden State 227.5. LA, Houston, 222.5. I think those are the most notable totals on the board. Sean, let's jump into the play, shall we?
Sure, let's do it.
Over at the point guard position, up at the top, there's really only a couple names at the top tier of point guards, and it's Steph Curry and Malcolm Brogdon who are going up against one another. Curry coming off an awful game. Brogdon has been one of the most consistent fantasy producers in the league over the last 2 weeks. Do you have a lean either way between Brogdon and Curry, or do you like them both?
I mean, yeah, I like both of them. Obviously, as you mentioned, Steph's going to be in a bounce back spot here. Had a really tough game last game out against the Raptors. Hopefully, he can shoot better than he did. I think he was like 2 of 16 or something like that. I mean,
Sure was.
Hard to do,
Yeah.
pretty hard to do, especially for as good of a shooter as Curry is. He's going to bounce back. He's probably going to have a good game. It's a decent spot. And the thing is Brogdon is a pretty decent defender. If they're without Oladipo, that's kind of a hit to their defense, I believe. Which I do think. I think Oladipo he probably sits here. I think that they probably wouldn't have even said anything last night if there was no confusion or even concern that he would play. I think he does sit. I think he sits here on the back-to-back, which obviously puts me on Brogdon a little bit higher. And now seeing his ownership at the current moment, especially over on DraftKings as a tournament play, I don't love the price, but I think seeing him coming into this matchup with the total being at 228, second highest total on the board, I believe. It makes me really like Malcolm Brogdon. It's a great matchup. His usage is going to kind of go up a little bit more without Oladipo. They're still without T.J. Warren. Him and Sabonis are going to be in smash spots here. I really like Malcolm Brogdon tonight.
Yeah, I think it is interesting about the price because it's not something we're comfortable with. But if there's no Oladipo, maybe there is a 60-point ceiling in there somewhere. We've seen 55 with Oladipo, so I don't think 60 is totally out of the question. Let's move down the list to someone that let's go to the Murrays, Jamal and DeJounte. I think both are firmly in play. Everyone was on DeJounte the other day. He let us all down, but there's still no DeMar DeRozan. There's still no Derek White. I think we could firmly go back to the well here and, kind of a spot where recency bias plays a role. Sometimes we love recency bias because if Murray's ownership is going to be low, then why wouldn't we load up on a guy with a 28% usage rate?
Right.
But, Sean, Jamal Murray, very interesting because he's been all over the place in terms of production lately. We just got word before we hopped on air that Gary Harris could potentially be missing this game. What's your interest level in the Murrays? Do you prefer one to the other? How do you feel about these two guys?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think that where a lot of people are going to be going to, like the Houston-LA game, it's the prime spot. It's has a decent total. It's got the stars. I think OKC and San Antonio is going to come in a little bit under-owned. The good thing here is that the total is not bad. I mean, it's at 218, 219. You have the Spurs who've been sitting in the top 5 of pace here lately, ranked in top five teams in terms of possession. So, it's a good spot for both teams. But I think Dejounte Murray is going to get a little bit of SGA. Don't exactly love the spot. I actually kind of like SGA a little bit more, as you alluded to in the playbook. I know he's probably he is one of your top plays tonight. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of there more. But Jamal Murray is definitely interesting in tournaments. We know this game has a huge total, highest one on the board at the moment. It's going to be a huge pace-up spot for Denver going into Brooklyn here. Brooklyn playing with top 6 pace. So I think it's a real interesting spot. And this should be a spot that Jamal Murray actually could play really well. He's likely going to get Karis LeVert defense, which is fine. I'm totally fine with that. And if Gary Harris is out, then it might put me a little bit more towards, wanting to play him, especially in tournaments.
Yeah, and Gary Harris has been kind of stealing some of the thunder offensively lately. He's been shooting the ball extremely well, and Murray's taken 9 and 11 shots, respectively, the last 2 games. So I do agree. I think that's a good call. And, hey, we know that there is GPP winning upside in that body. We saw it all throughout the bubble. We've seen it for 3 years now. Jamal Murray can pop at any time, and this pace-up spot is definitely one of them. Let's talk about some value guys. I think you and I and John were discussing both Yogi Ferrell and Gabe Vincent kind of as options. Again, the Heat have 8 players active, 3 of which are guards in Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and Gabe Vincent. I guess Max Struss is also a guard. Max Struss has played 12 minutes this year. Gabe Vincent 15. Gabe Vincent has a pretty good G League pedigree, 22 points per game last year. But talk to us about Yogi, Sean, because there's some interesting notes from last night's 17-minute outing from Yogi that I don't know if the people realize.
Yeah, so I mean, Cleveland, they're decimated at the point guards and guard spot. Dante Exum's out. They just, Sexland's out tonight. So
yeah, Sexland, baby.
It's back to Damian Dotson, Chetty Osman. So basically, Yogi came in, was signed on a 10-day contract to play for Cleveland. This is his second game in 2 nights. And he played 17 minutes last night. Had a 35.6% usage rate. So, he only put up 18 fantasy points, which is roughly over 1 fantasy point per minute if you do the math. But yeah, I mean, we could obviously see Yogi see 25 minutes tonight. I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. I know, maybe the reason that he only played 17 minutes last night was maybe conditioning, maybe not in shape. Was his first game on a basketball court, and no telling how long. But the thing is they're decimated again. They're thin. They have nobody at the guard spot. And if this game gets out of hand, it's a 13-point spread right now. It just bumped down to 12.5. But nonetheless, they're not giving Cleveland much of a chance in this game. So in that, event, if it does happen to get out of hand in the first half, you could see Yogi playing a lot of the second half and, plus his run in the first half. So at 3K, stone minimum on DraftKings, I don't see how you cannot at least consider it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's interesting and a good point to bring up that it's a 12.5-point spread. And if this game does, in fact, get out of hand, if Andre Drummond doesn't play, how does Cleveland keep this close? And Yogi's on a 10-day contract. They have no ties to him. They can use and abuse for these next 10 days, Sean. So I do like Yogi quite a bit. I do like Gabe Vincent as well, just out of necessity for Miami. And speaking of Miami, we have the chalk of all chalk here at the shooting guard position in Tyler Hero. John messaged us joking around saying over under 40 shots for Tyler Hero. I said the over. And honestly, I mean, who else is going to hoist the ball for Miami tonight other than Hero, Robinson, and Olynyk? It's just going to be crazy, but it's going to be near impossible, whether this game stays competitive or not, to fade Tyler Hero in cash. And honestly, he's going to probably be the highest owned player in tournaments as well.
And, I mean, he should be. I mean, I know the price isn't favorable. It's, not the 5,400 on FanDuel that he was getting just, a couple nights ago. But just for the simple reasons of everything that you just said, they've only got 8 players. Between the 3 that you mentioned and maybe Gabe Vincent, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a scorer. He can shoot. He'll probably have some shots. Other than that, they don't have anybody else. I mean, and the fact that we've already saw Tyler Hero even win, this Miami team had their full team, he still played 36 minutes in a blowout. So we know he's going to play. He's going to be on the floor. It's just one of them good chalk situations where you don't want to play it, especially in tournaments, but you kind of have to. It's just one of those spots.
Yeah, I mean, he carries a 22% usage rate when Butler, Dragic, and Bam are active. So that usage rate is going to absolutely skyrocket. We don't really have like a viable sample. I don't want to like mislead anyone. Just know it's going to be crazy. But in the same backcourt, we have Duncan Robinson, who I think is mispriced for the situation Miami's in, knowing that they were going to be out. Like, these guys weren't ruled out today. They were ruled out yesterday. This seems like a miss for DraftKings to still price Duncan Robinson at 4,800. I don't see a reason why we don't roster him in cash. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't want to play him in tournaments either. He's contributing on the glass. Where is your priority level with Duncan Robinson tonight under 5K?
I like him in tournaments, and obviously he's looking to be a little bit more chalkier than I expected. But same thing, we've seen him put over 30 fantasy points a couple times this year already. That's the only bad thing about with Cash is his floor has been pretty crappy. I mean, it hasn't been the greatest. But, we have seen the upside. So we know if he comes in, and the simple fact that, Philadelphia has been absolutely torched by wings, really makes you like Duncan Robinson in tournaments. And that's probably where I'll keep it at. I just think that he's a better tournament play.
Obviously, there are some higher priced guys, and but I think Miami was the important 2 to get out of the way there. Interest level in Harden and LeVert. Let's say John Wall doesn't play. Let's say Eric Gordon doesn't play. Where do you stand with James Harden?
Probably a lot of James Harden and Christian Wood stacks. I mean, this is a rubber match. The spread is entirely too close for what we just saw. The last time we've seen a couple of these instances already this year where a team plays a team, then they play them again the next game. We've seen a couple of them where they blow them out the first game, and then the next game they keep it really close or even win as an outright. It's a 5-point spread in this game, and it's in Houston. In the event that those two guys don't play, or even John Wall, if John Wall doesn't play, I want Harden.
I mean, right.
He's probably a number 2 or number 3 for me tonight.
Yeah, he's the Wall absence is definitely more impactful for Harden. I think the Eric Gordon absence is kind of more impactful for someone like Ben McLemore, who's here in this value tier, who's played, just a modest 16 and 17 minutes since his return. But we saw the upside in 16 minutes. He put up 25 fantasy points. We know he's a lightning in a bottle, at least offensively. So I think Ben McLemore, if Eric Gordon sits, could be firmly in play and maybe just take on the Eric Gordon role. I think even if Wall played and Gordon sat, I would have some interest in McLemore. No one's going to play him. And Gordon plays 30 minutes a game, so those minutes can easily just slide over to McLemore as he ramps up through the year. Let's shift over to, I think, the worst position on the board. I hate small forward tonight. I'm using a lot of guys at small forward that are eligible from other positions because nobody necessarily stands out to me as like that clear-cut guy. On FanDuel, you have Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is power forward only on DraftKings, so you don't have that option there to play Durant. So obviously FanDuel, easy. You just plug and play Kevin Durant. But if you are a FanDuel guy, Sean, and I know you're not, but I think we need to go there just to just kind of address how bad the position is, and it is the elephant in the room. Like, where else are you going? I like Indiana tonight for the small forward position. McDermott, Holiday, especially with Oladipo kind of in limbo, likely not to play. Bojan on FanDuel is under 5K. Like, where is your interest in the small forward position?
Yeah, it sucks, on FanDuel because you don't get Lonnie Walker over there.
Right.
But, another one that I was kind of looking at would be Chetty Osman, which I think he's, on FanDuel, I think he's a power forward now. They switched him over. So, yeah, I mean, it's a total wasteland on FanDuel. I mean, yeah, Will Barton a shooting guard over there or small forward?
Barton is a $5,700 small forward. Chetty is actually $5,100 at the small forward position on FanDuel.
Okay, so there's a couple of different I mean, obviously if Gary Harris sits, I mean, we've seen Will Barton already getting lots of run. He kind of had 22 minutes last game, which wasn't great, but he's alternated 35-minute games with 20-minute games, and if Harris does happen to sit, Barton will absolutely be in play here in that high total game. It could easily fit his pace. And then Chetty, again, I mean, who else do they have? They have nobody else. He's going to play in blowout run, and he's probably going to play close to 40 minutes. I mean, so yeah, I mean, those are a couple different options I think you can look at.
It sucks we got the Doug McDermott game last night because we found out Oladipo may not play. Then McDermott shot the lights out, and now he's going to be highly owned everywhere. So that kind of sucks that he couldn't wait one night. What a selfish
Dougie McBuckets.
Yes, so selfish. But I do think Chetty at 5-1 is super intriguing. If Gary Harris does sit, I'll throw PJ Dozier's name, throw his hat into the ring just as a tournament play. But I do think Barton probably becomes that chalky small forward 2 over on FanDuel. Let's shift to power forward, where I think there's a lot of decisions to be made because Kevin Durant is obviously one of the top plays on the slate. We saw the upside without Kyrie. We've seen the upside with Kyrie. I mean, the guy has gone for 50+ in 3 of his last 4. And I said it to you last night in the podcast. Another situation where I don't know why he's $9,400 when DraftKings had an entire day to get him to the 10K mark. They're kind of making it easy. But, Sean, we have a guy for $100 cheaper in Domantas Sabonis who could be without Victor Oladipo. There has been a 40-point floor this year in 10 games, and there has been a 60-point ceiling. If there was a lean, and you know what? Let's throw Anthony Davis into the ring, especially on FanDuel, where he's had three blocks or more in 4 straight games. If you had a lean in this top tier of power forwards, because it's an elite position, where's your head at?
So yeah, I mean, I know, like you said, Durant is a small forward on FanDuel, right? So
Right.
I think, it's literally between Sabonis, Davis, Wood, and between those three, I think it's pretty easy if Davis plays. I mean, it's going to be Sabonis and Davis.
Right.
But if John Wall is out, I think that's going to bring some pretty interesting usage to Christian Wood. I think him and James Harden can have a pretty good little combination there, good little workflow that they can probably put together, even against the Lakers. So I think it'll be really interesting to get the news later, obviously, for one. But Sabonis, I mean, he's been really good.
Yeah.
He's one of the only guys on this slate that we for sure know is going to get us 40 plus pretty much every night. And then you throw in the factor that Vic Oladipo might not play, and Sabonis is one of the highest usage leaders on the team already, right behind Malcolm Brogdon. So I see lots and lots of two-man stacks in my lineups with those two guys on DraftKings. Even I don't even mind to pay. I don't mind the chalk on Sabonis because it's a great matchup here against Golden State, who will likely be playing Draymond at center a lot. I mean, I just don't really think you can kind of go away from Sabonis, and that's likely why he's going to be as chalky as he is. He's one of the easily top 5 players on the slate in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm not going to disagree with you there at all. And I think a nice approach could be if you were going to run the Brogdon Sabonis stack, bring it back with Curry. We have a ton of value on the board, and you can make that work so easily. You just, hey, plug and play 3 Heat guys, and you got your value, So let's move down the position, and it's someone that you and I talked, and John talked about a little bit in our DMs before we hopped on air. I love Darius Bazley tonight, and I knew before even looking at ownership, nobody's going to play this guy. And I'm calling him Darius Beige GPP because the range of outcomes is higher on nobody right now. I mean, we've seen 8 shots, we've seen 20 shots, we've seen 15 fantasy points, we've seen 40 fantasy points. The matchup's great. The total is on the rise. Could you see yourself playing some Bazley in tournaments, or would you pivot to someone like Aldridge or Draymond Green even?
No, yeah, I'm on him. I mean, I just like that game in general. I just think there's a lot of different ways to go. I mean, you can go LMA, you can go, you got Trey Lyles, I know we'll talk about probably here pretty soon, and then, you got LMA, Deontay Murray, and then on the flip side, you've got SGA. Bazley. It's that game to me. Like I said, it's only a 2.5 point spread. Has a decent total of near 220. I just really like that game. The Spurs have been playing fast all year long. I tweeted out the other day whenever they played Minnesota and then they went to like double overtime or had an overtime and scored like almost 270 points. They're not very good on defense.
Right.
And OKC's been not very good on defense either. So you get 2 teams that are not great on defense who are playing faster, especially the Spurs, as mentioned. So I just really like that game. And Bazley, I mean, I know we had talked about it, as you mentioned before. San Antonio's been allowing quite a few fantasy points to that power forward spot. And nobody's going to be on him because he just had 2 dud games back to back, right? So we know he's got 40 point upside. We've seen it. We know for 35 at least. And the price is fair, especially on DraftKings where he's only 5.9. On FanDuel, when you get up to 6.4, I think you're kind of looking to just go ahead and pay up in those spots. I mean, you got Wood, Sabonis, AD all right there, just right above. You can definitely get value elsewhere. So I think on DraftKings, he's fine for tournaments, and he's virtually going to be unowned.
Yeah, everything you said. And recency bias, full circle again. Another guy that nobody's going to play because he's sucked the last 2 games. But we know if this game shoots out, like you and I both kind of alluded to as like our sneaky little stack of the night. Bazley's going to, snack of the night. Hey, screw it. I'm always eating, so you always call me out for it. So this is the snack of the night, the Spurs and the Thunder. But you did mention Trey Lyles on the other side of this game. And we talked about it pretty extensively last night in the podcast. If he's going to play 35 minutes, I think Trey Lyles is a way that if you are uncomfortable playing 3 guys from one team, such as the Heat, 3 kind of unknowns. I mean, we know, let's face it, Joel Embiid can put anybody in a blender and put anyone in foul trouble very fast. So if you want to pivot off Precious, who's probably going to be popular, if you want to pivot off Kelly Olynyk, who should garner a lot of ownership, Trey Lyles at 3,300 and 3,600 on DraftKings and FanDuel respectively is that pivot.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the ownership right now, it looks like people have caught on a little bit. I mean,
Yep.
it's hard to overlook 35 minutes in your first start.
Right.
And it's a good spot. I mean, OKC, they're rolling out Al Horford, and that's not anything for any opposing center to be afraid of. But yeah, Trey Lyles, 35. We know he can shoot the three well. We've seen it. We've seen this guy put up. I think he was just a couple points away from a double-double. I mean,
yep.
And he only put up 20 fantasy points in 35 minutes. He didn't take very many shots. I think he took 4 shots. But at 3.3K, yeah, I mean, you're looking at 16 fantasy points for value at 5X. I mean, he gave you 6.5 last night. I easily think he can give you another 7 to 8X tonight, if not more, if he's starting. I mean, if he starts, if they continue to get away from the Jakob Poeltl experiment, which I think is a good thing because I think Trey Lyles is better than Jakob Poeltl. Okay. Yeah, I would love to see Trey Lyles get another start here, and obviously so would my lineups. I mean,
even if he does go for 20 again, I mean it's still a win at 3,300. So just get us 20 again, Trey. That's all we're asking.
I'm good with that. I'll pay it elsewhere.
Speaking of paying it elsewhere, Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid here at the center position. Look, I'm actually surprised to see Embiid's ownership higher than Jokic, and I figured Embiid would kind of check in a little lower owned after kind of letting everyone down. Not that he let everyone down last night because he was on pace to go for about 90 before he checked out. But, this game isn't expected to stay close, and if it doesn't, Philly has no reason to keep him in the game. What's your interest level on Embiid? And then talk to me about Jokic and what formats you're looking to use Jokic in.
I mean, Jokic is a top. He's a top. He's probably, and I know I was on him hardcore the other night, and he let us down. But he's easily a top play for me tonight. The guy's averaging near 60 fantasy points. It's a lovely matchup. It's a pace-up spot. It fits him just well. Yep. He could easily put up a triple-double tonight against Jared Allen. He can easily get Jared Allen in foul trouble as well. So then you would be looking at DeAndre Jordan. So, the Nets have been terrible against center spot all year long. They've been getting destroyed by him, and you got the ultimate center here against them, leading the team in usage. He's been their offense and, everything for them lately. So, for me, especially seeing that he's not coming in with as much ownership, probably due to his price, which I'm totally fine with. I think him over Embiid for me is still fine. I think I'm still going that way.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hey, he's averaging 58 DK points and he's averaging a triple double. So you're not gonna scare me off at 11K. That's not happening. I'm all in on Jokic as well in that game environment. Lots of Jokic Durant stacks. Let me tell you, Sean. Lots of Jokic Durant stacks tonight. Going down the list, I think the mid tier is wishy-washy. I think Miles Turner and Al Horford are okay options. It's Turner on FanDuel where we get all the blocks because he's selling out for the block, which is fine. As a DFS player, we like the sellout for the block. We obviously don't like that in real life if you're Indiana, but Horford also coming off a ceiling game. I think there's another spot where that we could see that come to fruition. I think the value at center is interesting because if there's no – so we just got word Andre Drummond is questionable. Breaking news, still questionable, still nothing decided on that front. But if he doesn't play, what is the interest level on JaVale McGee in a 12.5 point spread?
I don't know. I mean, we did see JaVale play the 24 minutes, earlier against the Hawks. And I know that by heart because that was my playbook, and I was all in on Drummond. And he got foul trouble and got technical, and then was pretty much benched. But McGee played really well in that game. And he showed that he can still play and play a decent amount of minutes. When he played for the Lakers, you wouldn't see him on the floor past 14 minutes, which was pretty tough. But yeah, if he is indeed out, who else do they have? It kind of gets into that spot where you're like, well, who else can they play? It's not a great spot against Rudy. It is 14-point spread, 13-point spread. It's not a great spot, not a great game, not a great anything really. But at the same time, he's extremely cheap, and he doesn't need to get you much to pay off. So I'm fine with that if Drummond does sit, but it's definitely not my favorite play.
Yeah, I mean it's solely based on the status of Andre Drummond, which we will know, at least on FanDuel we will know, because it's a 7:30 game, which is when FanDuel locks. It will lock at 7:00 on DraftKings because we have that early game. I'll just throw Marc Gasol's name into the mix. 25 minutes was a season high the last time out, and we've seen 40 out of him. Do I think we see that again? No, but Houston 22nd against center position on the year, and if he's going up against DeMarcus Cousins, I think that there is some upside here. Sean, any final words before we get out of here?
No, I don't think so. I really like Draymond Green tonight too. I'm gonna throw that out there.
Yeah,
he's really on DraftKings and can play center, and I think he's a good, decent value look at center.
Yeah, and that game environment is second. You mentioned it earlier, second highest game total on the board. So, I do think that there is. I like seeing Draymond take 8 shots. I know it was only 8 shots, but that is double what we've been seeing. So we'll take that any day of the week. If he's going to be that triple-double threat, we'll take it. Again, big shout out to John and Pemba for the production of today's stream. We have all the content out for today. We will be in subscriber chat for the next hour and a half, leading up to lineup lock over on FanDuel and DraftKings. And we'll have another full day of content again tomorrow. So we'll see you guys then.